Christopher Hitchens wrote about the author we're talking about this week the following. A journalist, most especially an Anglo-American travel writer, will run the risk of disappointing his editor if he visits Saigon and leaves out any reference to quiet Americans, or turns in a piece from Havana that fails to mention the hapless wormhole. As for Brighton or Vienna or Haiti, Greene was there just before you turned up. Leaving the Orient Express, you will glimpse the tail of a raincoat, just at the moment when that intriguing and anonymous fellow passenger vanishes discreetly at the end of the platform. For September the 10th, 2011, this is A Book and a Martini, and this week we're talking about my all-time favorite novelist, the great Graham Greene. I'm heartened by the future of education. I noted in a Facebook posting by a dear friend that her son's reading list in English included the Bible, the Aeneid, and The Heart of the Matter by Graham Greene. I really find that encouraging that great novels by dead writers are making it into the curriculum, particularly 20th century writers. They tend to get omitted. You'll jump from Dickens to something like, I don't know, Shane or whatever. I could tell you a very long story about when I taught English for a brief time in Scarborough, Ontario, which is a big, sprawling, middle-class suburb, and teaching Shane, to a bunch of 13-year-olds who could care less about the Old West. But I digress. Graham Greene was born 1904 in Hereford, England. Passed away in 1991. Turned out a host of absolutely brilliant novels. I mentioned The Heart of the Matter. The first big breakthrough novel for him was Brighton Rock. It's also The Quiet American, The Human Factor. His entertainments, like Our Man in Havana, which was made into a wonderful movie starring Alec Guinness about a vacuum cleaner salesman who gets recruited to be a double agent. The formative experience of Graham Greene's life was that his father was the headmaster of the Berkhamsted School, and it was very interesting living quarters. The family lived self-contained, and there was this doorway, an arched doorway through which was the school. So you had the family on the one side, the professional life on the other side, and Greene observed that people were different depending on which side of the door you fell on. This was the start of what became known as Greenland, the land of ambiguity. The same friend whose son is studying Graham Greene, I happened to make a comment to, and an idea really coalesced in my mind at that moment. And I think that perhaps the most interesting and intriguing aspect and perplexing aspect of human nature is that all so often we truly do know what is the right thing to do, but for whatever reason we don't do it. That is Greenland, the place where decisions are made, the decisions between the material and the spiritual. Greene was a devout Roman Catholic. He came by to it through the most wonderful way. It was because he fell in love with his first wife. He was married several times. He wasn't that much of a Catholic, or perhaps he was. I'm Irish-Italian, I get to say that. But Vivian was Catholic, wouldn't marry him unless Graham converted, which he did. And as with converts to many things, either religion or politics, he attacked it with fervor and commitment. And that's my dog growling in the background. Stella, quiet. Anyway. Quiet you. His opinions on the novel and writing, I think, are best expressed. It's why I took this book, Reflections. It was a book of otherwise uncollected pieces that he'd written over the years that came out the year before his death in 1990. Interestingly, the publisher was a company called Lester and Orpin Dennis out of Toronto. Orpin Dennis, female, was Graham Greene's niece. As was rather nice that Canada got the first run of Greene's last several books. But in an essay called "The Last Pope," which also contains the working papers for what became one of his very last short stories. Yeah, this came out in and around 1950. Pardon me, yeah, in 1948. No doubt because he continues an uninterrupted tradition of Christian state of mind, thought, and style. The French novelist seems to move easily among abstractions. They surround his childhood, and the liturgy is as familiar to him as his nursery rhymes. When a door opens in a novel by Mauriac, even before one leaves the shadows to enter the well-lit room where the characters are assembled, one is aware of forces of good and evil that slide along the walls and press their fingers against the window pane ready to crowd in. This awareness is, in general, banished from the English novel. Perhaps it is because we live in a northern island where the sun shines so spasmodically, and where we can be cut off from the continent for days at a time by fog or storm. An island to which Christianity came like a stranger from across the sea. Perhaps because of this, we tend to be more materialistic in our reactions and more concrete in imagination than those who live in sunnier lands, who can permit themselves the luxury of shadow. The English novelist has become accustomed to bypass eternity. Evil appears in Dickens's novels only as an economic factor, nothing more. Christianity is a woman serving soup to the poor. How vivid are his images of the still Sunday streets, the dark, mean little courts near the river, the prison buildings, but how barren and dim is the life of the spirit. Only Graham Greene could get away with trashing Charles Dickens. He's also great fun. He also wrote volumes, over 800 pieces of criticism on books and movies in the 1930s. He got in tremendous trouble for one of his reviews in the 1930s. I think it was in the New Statesman, where he referred to the sexualization of a major Hollywood actress, Shirley Temple. But on the other hand, it was a rather short and an unfortunate step from Shirley Temple to John Vincent Benet and those poor little girls who have been overly sexualized. A little trivia note about Shirley Temple that you may not know. She was actually first spotted by Harpo Marx, the beloved Harpo. Harpo went to Shirley's mother and offered to buy her. Good old Hollywood, the golden age. I'm sure Harper didn't mean anything wrong by that. Greene also wrote movies. My all-time favorite movie, by a long shot, actually, I have seen it at least 10 times, is The Third Man, set in immediate post-World War II Vienna. And it is full of Greenland, full of boundaries, the American sector, the English sector, the Russian sector, and would one dare to cross from one to the other, and the great moral dilemma. Does Holly Martin's the hero? In the short novel version, I'm like Dorothy Parker, I don't use the dirty word novella. The character's name is Rollo Martins, it's changed to Holly for the movie version. But does he show loyalty to his friend Harry Lime, who is selling watered-down drugs that are permanently disabling children? Or does he do the right thing and turn in Harry? But the best part of The Third Man, and I'm going to leave you with this. When I ran my theater company, I used to pull audition pieces from all kinds of places. To give to auditioning actors. I never liked prepared pieces. I wanted to see how an actor would play with something. But one of them was from the Third Man, and it culminates, for my money, the best line that's ever been done in movies. Movies actually used to have lines. That's why I don't watch movies anymore. I kind of like things with words in them. Anyway, Harry and Holly in the merry-go-round, or pardon me, the Ferris wheel. That was almost Kate Woodstock in the word. And Holly is trying to gently tell Harry that perhaps what he's doing is wrong, and Harry says to him, in Italy, for 30 years under the Borgias, they had warfare, terror, murder, and bloodshed, but they produced Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, and the Renaissance. In Switzerland, they had brotherly love, they had 500 years of democracy and peace, and what did they produce? The cuckoo clock. Movies used to have words. Novels used to have Graham Greene. Pick him up and read him. He's great fun, too. He does a wonderful thriller. But tribute to our old friend Tommy, we'll close off as always. From those of us who work the late shift, good night, everybody.